The late summer breeze carried the scent of grilling meat across my parents' backyard. It was our annual family barbecue, a tradition that had morphed from genuine celebration into a showcase of status and achievement. I watched my sister Amanda adjust her designer sunglasses while critiquing my 7-year-old twin's clothing. Target, she touched Emily's dress with 2 fingers as if it might contaminate her. Oh, James, you really should let Sarah take the girls shopping. I kept my expression neutral, remembering the Italian boutique where I'd actually bought the dresses. The girls like these. My brother-in-law Charles manned the grill, discussing his latest yacht purchase with our father. The conversations at these gatherings always revolved around displays of wealth, new cars, vacation homes, private club memberships. I drove a 5-year-old Honda and lived in a modest 4-bedroom house, which made me the family disappointment. Speaking of the girls, Amanda continued, louder now to draw everyone's attention. I heard you're applying to Westbrook Academy. She paused for effect. Ambitious. The word hung in the air like smoke. My mother looked up from her wine glass and my father turned away from the grill. Even Charles stopped mid-sentence about his yacht's navigation system. We're considering it, I said carefully, watching my daughters playing near the pool with their cousins. Emily and Sophie were brilliant, testing 4 grade levels above their age in mathematics and 3 in reading. They deserved the best education possible. Amanda laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. James, be realistic. Westbrook's tuition is $75,000 per year, per child. That's $150,000 annually for both girls. You can barely afford their after-school programs now. The girls are very bright, I started to say, but Amanda cut me off. Intelligence isn't everything, dear brother. Westbrook is for families of a certain caliber. Our Madison got in because Charles and I are on the board of trustees. It's about connections, influence, status. She gestured at my Honda parked in the driveway. Not exactly your world. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, not anger, but the weight of a decade's worth of secrets. If they only knew that I'd purchased Westbrook Academy 3 years ago through my education investment firm, Harrison Global Partners. The $2.7 billion acquisition had been done quietly through a series of shell companies, maintaining my anonymity. The applications are due next week. My mother chimed in. Perhaps it's better not to get the girls' hopes up. The public school in your district is adequate. I watched Emily execute a perfect dive into the pool, while Sophie corrected their cousin Madison's mathematics homework by the poolside. My daughters were exceptional, but my family had never bothered to notice. Sarah could help, Amanda suggested, referring to my ex-wife. Her new husband Gregory is quite successful. I'm sure he'd be happy to contribute to the girls' education. The mention of Sarah and Gregory made my father join the conversation. Now that's someone who understands ambition. Gregory built that tech company from scratch. What is it worth now? $2 billion? 3, Amanda corrected. Sarah certainly upgraded when she left James. The irony almost made me smile. Gregory's company was worth exactly $2.87 billion. I knew because Harrison Global Partners had just declined to acquire it, finding several concerning irregularities in their financial statements, but that would come out soon enough. The girls will be fine, I said quietly, watching Sophie explain advanced algebra to a confused Madison. James, Amanda leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. You need to accept your limitations. You walked away from the family business to become a teacher. Now you live in that tiny house, drive that old car, and barely make ends meet. There's no shame in it, but don't drag your daughters into your choices. I thought about my office at Harrison Global, the entire top floor of a downtown skyscraper, with a view of the city I was quietly reshaping. The tiny house was one of 17 properties I owned in the city. The old Honda was a deliberate choice. I had a collection of vintage cars worth more than Charles's yacht sitting in a climate-controlled garage across town. Your kids don't belong in elite school, Amanda suddenly announced loudly, making several heads turn. Know your place, James. Those schools have standards to maintain. The pool area went quiet. Emily and Sophie had stopped swimming and were looking our way. Madison smirked at my daughters, a perfect miniature of her mother's contempt. I could have ended it right there. One phone call would have revealed everything. The ownership of Westbrook, the true extent of my wealth, the fact that I'd been quietly buying up every major educational institution in the state. But timing was everything. Perhaps you're right, I said mildly, standing up. Girls, time to go home. Running away as usual, my father muttered, but I pretended not to hear. The drive home was quiet. In the rearview mirror I could see Emily and Sophie exchanging worried glances. Dad, Sophie finally spoke up. Are we not good enough for Westbrook? I pulled into our driveway, the modest house I kept for appearances, though we spent most weekends at our beach house 2 hours away. Girls, remember what I taught you about strategy? They nodded in unison. Sometimes the best move is to let others think they've won, Emily recited. Exactly. Now, how about ice cream? We can discuss advanced calculus over Sundays. Their faces lit up. My daughters understood advanced mathematics better than most college students, but they were still 7-year-olds who loved ice cream. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, I sat in my home office reviewing the latest reports from Harrison Global. Our educational division had grown to include 12 private academies, 3 universities, and a revolutionary online learning platform. Westbrook was just the beginning. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. I hope you're not upset about earlier. We just don't want the girls to face rejection. Know your limitations, James. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Westbrook Academy file. Tomorrow was the board meeting where they would review next year's admissions. Amanda and Charles would be there, of course, along with the other trustees who thought they ran the school. They didn't know that 6 months ago, I had replaced the entire senior administration with my own team. The board of trustees was now purely ceremonial, though they hadn't realized it yet. Every major decision went through my office, carefully disguised as recommendations from various committees. Another text from Amanda. Madison is so excited about the new Westbrook Equestrian Center. Charles's donation made it possible. That's the kind of thing that matters there. I looked at the plans for the Equestrian Center on my desk. Charles's generous donation of $2 million had been a drop in the bucket compared to the $50 million I'd actually allocated for the project. But let them have their moment. For now. My phone rang, the secure line I used for business. Mr. Harrison, my assistant's voice was crisp. The documents are ready for tomorrow's board meeting. Shall I proceed as planned? I thought about Amanda's sneering face, my father's dismissal, my mother's practice disappointment. I thought about my daughter's worried expressions in the car. Yes, I said. It's time. Execute Protocol Alpha. Protocol Alpha was something we'd prepared months ago, a complete restructuring of Westbrook's administration and board, to be revealed at tomorrow's meeting. Every document, every legal paper, every transfer of power had been meticulously prepared. Very good, sir. And the other matter? Yes, proceed with that as well. The other matter was the reason I'd chosen tomorrow for the revelation. The FBI would be arriving at Gregory's company headquarters at 9 a.m., just as the Westbrook board meeting began. The evidence of his financial fraud had been carefully compiled and anonymously submitted to the authorities weeks ago. I opened my daughter's college funds on my computer, 2 trust funds worth $50 million each, which they would receive at 21. Below that window was the real estate portfolio I'd built. Apartment complexes, office buildings, shopping centers, and educational institutions across 3 states. Harrison Global Partners had grown from a small investment firm to a multi-billion-dollar empire, all while my family thought I was struggling to make ends meet as a teacher. Teaching was my passion. I still taught advanced mathematics at the local community college twice a week, but it was never my only pursuit. A final text from Amanda. Don't forget, board meeting tomorrow at 9. Not that it matters to you, but we're discussing next year's admissions standards. Probably best if you don't mention applying. I sent a simple reply. I'll be there. She wouldn't know that I'd arrived hours earlier, preparing the boardroom with my team. She wouldn't know that her precious trustee position was about to become ceremonial. She wouldn't know that my daughter's applications had already been accepted, not because of connections or donations, but because they had scored higher on the entrance exams than any students in Westbrook's history. I checked on the girls one last time before bed. Emily was reading a book on quantum physics, while Sophie had fallen asleep surrounded by advanced engineering sketches. They were brilliant, kind, and humble, everything I'd tried to teach them to be. Tomorrow would change everything. The carefully constructed facade I'd maintained for years would crumble. The family that had dismissed us would learn the truth about who really controlled their precious institutions. But tonight I was just a father watching his daughters sleep, knowing that tomorrow they would never have to doubt their place in any school again. I closed their door quietly and went to prepare for the morning. The documents were ready, the timing was perfect, and after 10 years of careful planning, everything was in place. Tomorrow the Board of Trustees would learn who really owned Westbrook Academy. Tomorrow my sister would discover who actually paid for her daughter's precious equestrian center. Tomorrow Gregory's empire would crumble just as Sarah was planning to announce their expansion. But most importantly, tomorrow my daughters would never again have to hear that they didn't belong. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with perfect timing and irrefutable evidence. The stage was set. In less than 12 hours the performance would begin. The next morning dawned clear and crisp. I adjusted my deliberately modest tie, a $15 department store purchase that clashed perfectly with my intentionally ill-fitting suit. Image was everything, and for one last time, I needed to play the struggling single father. Girls' breakfast. I called upstairs, preparing their favorite French toast. Emily and Sophie bounded down, already dressed in their matching blue dresses. "Dad, are we really going to the board meeting?" Sophie asked, her eyes bright with intelligence that went far beyond her 7 years. "Yes, and remember what we discussed about keeping quiet and observing." They nodded solemnly. I'd taught them early that true power lies in watching and waiting, not in showing off what you know. Like when Aunt Amanda doesn't know we can hear her calling us charity cases to her friends. Emily said, cutting her French toast into precise geometric shapes. "Exactly. Today will be different though. Today is about—" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Strategic revelation," they said in unison, making me smile. My daughters didn't just understand advanced mathematics, they understood power. We arrived at Westbrook Academy at 8:30 a.m. The campus was impressive: Gothic architecture, manicured lawns, and state-of-the-art facilities that would make most universities envious. I'd spent $500 million on improvements over the last 3 years, all through shell companies and discrete subsidiaries. Amanda's Mercedes was already parked in her reserved Board of Trustees spot. Next to it was Charles's Bentley, my father's Aston Martin, and various other luxury vehicles belonging to board members who thought their donations made them important. I parked my Honda between Amanda's and Charles' cars, earning a disapproving look from the valet. "Mr. Harrison," a voice called quietly. It was Miss Reynolds, my head of operations, disguised as a simple administrative assistant. "Everything is prepared. The FBI," I whispered as the girls walked ahead. "Arriving at Gregory's offices in 20 minutes. Your ex-wife is with him." Perfect timing. Sarah had insisted on being there when Gregory announced his company's expansion to the press. She'd be present when the federal agents arrived instead. We entered the oak-paneled boardroom at 8:45. Amanda was holding court at one end of the massive table, wearing what looked like a new Chanel suit. "James?" She blinked, genuinely surprised. "This is a closed board meeting. And why did you bring the girls?" "We were invited," I said simply, taking a seat at the far end of the table. Emily and Sophie sat quietly beside me, their tablets ready for note-taking. "By whom?" Charles demanded, his face reddening. "This is highly irregular." "By me," Miss Reynolds said, entering with a stack of folders, "under the direction of Harrison Global Partners." The room went silent. Amanda's perfectly maintained eyebrows drew together in confusion. "Harrison Global, the investment firm that bought the school. What do they have to do with James?" Before anyone could respond, my father burst in, his face ashen. "Have you seen the news? Gregory's being arrested. The FBI is at his offices right now." Several board members pulled out their phones. The story was already breaking. Tech giant CEO arrested for massive fraud. Miss Federal investigation reveals billions in false valuations. "Sarah's there," Amanda gasped, pulling up a live news feed. Indeed, the cameras showed my ex-wife being escorted from the building, her face a mask of shock. "Perhaps," I said quietly, "we should begin the meeting." "Begin the—" "James, this is serious." Gregory's company was going to fund the new science building. And Sarah, our poor Sarah. I nodded to Miss Reynolds, who began distributing the folders. "What's this?" Charles demanded, opening his folder. His face went from red to white in seconds. Notice of restructuring, I said, standing up. Effective immediately, the Board of Trustees will be dissolved and reconstituted under new leadership. They can't do this, Amanda shrieked, flipping through the documents. We're the board. Charles donated $2 million to the Equestrian Center. Actually, I said, loosening my cheap tie, Harrison Global donated $50 million. Charles's contribution barely covered the landscaping. My father's hands were shaking as he read his documents. Harrison Global Partners, founded by no, it can't be. James Harrison, I confirmed, finally dropping the act. Founder and CEO. Current net worth approximately $4.3 billion. Primary focus on educational investment and real estate development. The silence was absolute. Even Amanda seemed struck speechless. You? Charles finally sputtered. But, your house, that car, appearances, I said simply. Very useful tools when you want to observe people's true nature. All this time, Amanda whispered, her voice cracking. Every time we mocked you, dismissed you, you showed me exactly who you were, I finished. And you showed my daughters what kind of people they shouldn't become. Emily and Sophie were sitting perfectly straight, their tablets recording everything. They'd known most of the truth for the past year, once I'd deemed them old enough to understand the importance of discretion. The new board, Miss Reynolds announced, will focus on academic excellence and educational innovation. Financial contributions will no longer guarantee admission or influence. But Madison's position, Amanda began, will depend entirely on her academic performance. I cut in. Though given that my daughters have been tutoring her in basic mathematics, I suggest hiring a good academic support team. The doors opened again, and a series of security personnel entered. The building is secure, Mr. Harrison. Mrs. Gregory Thompson is requesting entrance. Sarah, right on schedule. Let her in, I said quietly. My ex-wife burst into the room, her designer outfit askew, mascara running. James, Gregory's been arrested. They're saying it's fraud, billions of dollars. I don't understand. I do, I said calmly. I declined to acquire his company last month because our audit revealed significant irregularities. The authorities were notified, as is our legal obligation. Sarah's eyes darted around the room, taking in the shell-shocked board members, the security personnel, my daughters calmly taking notes. Your new husband, I continued, has been running a rather impressive Ponzi scheme. Unfortunately for him, Harrison Global Partners has a very thorough due diligence process. Harrison Global, Sarah's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. No, you're not. Dad owns 12 private academies, 3 universities, and multiple other educational institutions, Sophie announced proudly, unable to contain herself any longer. Plus all the real estate, and the vintage car collection, Emily added. The Honda is just for show. I should have been angry at their outburst, but their timing was perfect. The looks on everyone's faces were priceless. Mr. Harrison, Miss Reynolds interrupted. The press is gathering outside. They're requesting a statement about both the Gregory Thompson arrest and the Westbrook restructuring. I straightened my cheap tie one last time. Amanda, Charles, you're welcome to stay on the new board in an advisory capacity, if you can demonstrate genuine value beyond your bank accounts. Father, your business acumen could be useful, if you're willing to work under new leadership. They stared at me, decades of superiority stripped away in minutes. Sarah, I turned to my ex-wife. The girls will continue their current living arrangements with me. Given your likely involvement in Gregory's financial dealings, I suggest focusing on your legal defense. James, she whispered, I never knew. That was the point, I said simply. Girls ready for the press conference. Emily and Sophie gathered their tablets, their matching blue dresses suddenly looking less like children's wear, and more like the custom-tailored Italian designer pieces they were. One last thing, I said, turning back to my stunned family. The next time you want to discuss whether my daughters belong at Westbrook Academy, remember who signs the paychecks. As we walked out, I heard Amanda burst into tears behind us, but I didn't look back. The cameras were waiting, and we had a new story to tell. The story of a father who built an empire, while everyone underestimated him. The story of two brilliant girls who learned to observe before acting. And most importantly, the story of how appearance and reality rarely align. Dad, Sophie whispered as we approached the press gathering. Can I take off these glasses now? They're just for show anyway. I smiled and nodded. It was time to stop pretending. The cameras began flashing as we stepped outside. Let them see us clearly now. The facade was finally over. The media storm that followed was exactly what I'd anticipated. Headlines ranged from educational empire's secret billionaire to tech CEO's arrest linked to mysterious investment firm. But the one that made Amanda call me crying was Westbrook Academy's real owner, the brother they mocked. 2 weeks after the revelation, I sat in my real office, the penthouse suite of Harrison Tower. The wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the city, including the Westbrook campus in the distance. Emily and Sophie were at their new research lab in the building's east wing, working on their latest project in quantum computing. Mr. Harrison, Miss Reynolds entered with her tablet. Your family is here. I nodded, not turning from the windows. All of them, your sister, brother-in-law, parents, and she paused. Your ex-wife. Show them in. They filed in silently, a far cry from their usual confident struts. Amanda's designer outfit looked somehow diminished, Charles' typical swagger replaced by nervous fidgeting. My parents seemed to have aged years in 2 weeks. Sarah lingered by the door, clutching her handbag like a shield. Nice office, my father finally said, trying to sound casual. The view is better than the family company's. I finished, finally turning to face them. Please sit. They arranged themselves on the Italian leather sofas, looking uncomfortable despite the luxury. Gregory's bail was denied, Sarah blurted out. They're saying he could face 20 years. 23, I corrected. The evidence was quite thorough. Did you? Amanda started, then seemed to lose her nerve. Did I orchestrate his downfall? I asked calmly. No. Gregory did that himself. I simply declined to invest in his fraudulent enterprise and fulfilled my legal obligation to report financial crimes. But the timing, Charles said. The same day as the board meeting. I smiled slightly. Strategy isn't just for boardrooms, Charles. Sometimes it's about waiting for all the pieces to align perfectly. Like you did with us, my mother whispered. All these years pretending to struggle. I never pretended anything. I corrected. You all made assumptions. I simply didn't correct them. A small screen on my desk lit up. Emily and Sophie were making a breakthrough in their research. I allowed myself a moment of pride before focusing back on my family. Madison's entrance exam results came back. Amanda said quietly. She failed. I know. I reviewed them personally. James, please, she leaned forward. She can't go to public school. Our reputation, your reputation, I interrupted, was built on money and connections. Madison's future will be built on merit. The same tutoring resources are available to all students. She simply needs to do the work. Like your girls did, Charles said, a note of realization in his voice. They weren't just lucky to be smart, were they? Emily and Sophie study 4 hours every day after school. They earned their places at Westbrook long before I bought it. The only difference is now they don't have to hide their achievements to make their cousin feel better. My father cleared his throat. Son, about the family business. Is struggling, I finished. Your overseas expansion failed. Your domestic market share is dropping and your innovation department hasn't produced anything significant in 5 years. He slumped in his seat. How did you know? I own 30% of your supplier companies through subsidiary firms. I've been watching your decline for years. Will you? He hesitated, swallowing his pride with visible effort. Will you help us? I stood and walked to a wall of photographs. My daughters at science fairs, giving presentations, working on complex equations. All the moments my family had been too busy bragging about Madison's horse riding ribbons to notice. Do you remember what you said when I left the family business to teach? I asked quietly. They all shifted uncomfortably. You said I was throwing my life away. I continued. That I'd never amount to anything teaching basic math to unmotivated students. That I was embarrassing the family name. We were wrong, Amanda whispered. Yes, you were, but not just about my career choice. You were wrong about what success looks like. Wrong about what matters in education. Wrong about my daughters. Sarah spoke up for the first time in several minutes. The girls, They're happy with you, aren't they? All this time I thought they needed my new money, my connections. They needed a parent who saw them for who they are. I said firmly, not who you wanted them to be for social status. A gentle chime indicated another breakthrough in the girls' lab. They were probably revolutionizing quantum theory while we had this conversation. As for the family business, I turned back to my father. Harrison Global will consider acquiring it, after a complete audit and restructuring. No special treatment, no family discounts. He nodded, understanding the new power dynamic. Madison can reapply to Westbrook next year, I added, looking at Amanda. If she puts in the work, the tutoring center is open to all students, regardless of their parents' status. And me? Sarah asked quietly. The FBI has questions about your involvement in Gregory's schemes. I suggest complete honesty. The girls will remain with me full-time until the legal issues are resolved. They sat in silence, absorbing the new reality. Their world of superficial status and bought privilege was ending, replaced by one where merit and effort mattered more than last names and bank accounts. One last thing, I said, pressing a button on my desk. Miss Reynolds entered with a stack of documents. These are non-disclosure agreements. Sign them. About your wealth, Charles asked. About my daughters. I corrected. Their achievements, their research, their capabilities, all of it stays private until they choose to reveal it. Their story will be their own to tell, not social media fodder for your bragging rights. They signed without argument, a first. As they stood to leave, Amanda paused. James, I'm sorry for everything we said, everything we did. I'm not the one you should apologize to, I replied. The girls remember every dismissive comment, every condescending pat on the head, every time you made them feel less than Madison. She flinched but nodded. After they left, I went to check on my daughters. They were excitedly explaining some quantum principle to their research team, all top scientists who had no problem taking direction from 7-year-old prodigies. Dad, Sophie called out. We solved the entanglement problem. And we have a new theory about particle acceleration, Emily added. I smiled, watching them light up as they talked about their discoveries. This was success. Not the money, not the revenge, but seeing my daughters free to be themselves. Ice cream to celebrate, I suggested. They grinned and began shutting down their equipment. Some things never change. They were still 7-year-olds who loved ice cream, even if they could explain string theory while eating it. As we rode the elevator down, Emily looked up at me. Dad, why did you wait so long to show everyone the truth? Because, I said, sometimes the best lessons take time to teach. Sophie nodded wisely, like how Aunt Amanda had to learn that money can't buy intelligence. Exactly. The elevator doors opened to the private garage, where my real car collection waited. Which one today? I asked. The Honda, they said in unison, then giggled. I laughed. My brilliant daughters had learned the most important lesson of all. True power lies not in showing off what you have, but in knowing who you are. Some victories are best celebrated quietly, preferably over ice cream. 6 months later, the dust had finally settled. Gregory was serving his sentence. Sarah had accepted a plea deal for her minor role in the fraud, and Westbrook Academy had transformed into the meritocratic institution I'd always envisioned. I sat in the audience at the school's winter symposium, watching Emily and Sophie present their quantum research to an auditorium full of stunned academics. The paper they'd published under pseudonyms had been making waves in the scientific community, no one expecting the authors to be twin 7-year-olds. Amanda sat 3 rows behind me, with a very different Madison beside her. Gone were the designer clothes and entitled attitude. The girl had spent the last 6 months working with tutors, determined to earn her place back at Westbrook. Her latest test scores showed remarkable improvement. Your daughters are extraordinary, a Nobel laureate whispered to me as the girls explained their breakthrough. They'll revolutionize quantum physics before they're teenagers. I nodded, but my pride wasn't in their genius. It was in their character. They'd insisted on creating a free online platform to share their teaching methods with underprivileged students. Intelligence is a gift, Sophie had said, and gifts should be shared. After the symposium, we gathered in my office for what had become a monthly family meeting. The dynamic had shifted dramatically since the revelation. My parents no longer dominated the conversation with boasts about wealth and status. Amanda had stopped comparing everyone's clothes and cars. Even Charles spoke less about his possessions and more about his ideas. The family company's restructuring is complete, my father reported quietly. Harrison Global's management team has done wonders. We're profitable again. I nodded. The merit-based promotion system is working then. Yes, he admitted. Some of our best innovations have come from junior employees we never listened to before. Amanda cleared her throat. Madison wanted me to tell you. She passed the entrance exams. All of them. We know, Emily said kindly. We've been monitoring her progress. She's working really hard. The old Madison would have expected special treatment, Sophie added. We like the new one better. A moment of uncomfortable silence followed as the adults absorbed the simple wisdom of children who had learned early what they had discovered late. True worth comes from within, not from external trappings. The educational foundation, my mother asked, referring to the nonprofit I'd established to provide scholarships and resources to gifted students regardless of background. Thriving, I replied. We've identified 300 exceptional students who couldn't afford quality education. They start next semester. All this time, Amanda mused. We thought success meant having the most expensive things, the most exclusive memberships. But you built something meaningful while we were busy showing off. I built it because of that, I corrected. Watching you all value status over substance showed me exactly what needed to change in education. The girls had moved to their private lab area in the office, already focused on their next project. Their ability to ignore social drama in favor of meaningful work was something I'd cultivated carefully. What happens now? Charles asked, watching Madison join the girls to work on an advanced mathematics problem. Now, I smiled. We build something better. A world where children are valued for their minds, not their parents' bank accounts. Where effort matters more than ancestry. Where true merit isn't measured in dollars. Looking at my daughters teaching their cousin complex equations, I saw the future I'd worked for. Madison was learning not just mathematics, but humility and the joy of earning her achievements. My family was learning that real respect comes from character, not wealth. The Honda? Amanda asked, suddenly noticing my car keys on the desk. Some habits are worth keeping, I replied. It reminds us where we came from, and more importantly, who we want to be. The girls looked up from their work. Dad, Emily called out, we think we've solved another quantum paradox, and we've figured out how to explain it to kids our age, Sophie added. I watched my family gather around the girls' workstation, genuinely interested in understanding rather than competing or showing off. The transformation wasn't just in our circumstances. It was in our values. Success, I realized, wasn't in the revelation of my wealth or the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. It was in creating a legacy of substance over show, of merit over money, of character over pretense. Ice cream, I suggested, seeing the girls' eyes light up despite their deep discussion of quantum mechanics. In the Honda, they insisted, making everyone laugh. Some things had changed dramatically in 6 months. But the most important things, like two brilliant girls who still loved ice cream with their dad, remained perfectly wonderfully the same. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in teaching them to be right. The end.